You can't. Okay. All right. So today we're going to start and review what we talked about last week. We're in Psalm 38, talking about the prayer of a suffering sinner. Starting out, Lord, do not punish me in your anger, or discipline me in your wrath, for your arrows have sunk into me, and your hand has pressed down on me. There is no health in my body because of your indignation. There is no strength in my bones because of my sin. For my sins have flooded over my head. They are a burden too heavy for me to bear. My wounds are foul and festering because of my foolishness. I am bent over and brought low. All day long I go around mourning. For my loins are full of burning pain, and there is no health in my body. I am faint and severely crushed. I groan because of the anguish of my heart. Lord, my every desire is known to you. My sighing is not hidden from you. My heart races, my strength leaves me, and even the light of my eyes has faded. My loved ones and friends stand back from my affliction, and my relatives stand at a distance. Those who seek my life set traps, and those who want to harm me threaten to destroy me. They plot treachery all day long. I am like a deaf person, I do not hear. I am like a speechless person who does not open his mouth. I am like a man who does not hear and has no arguments in his mouth. I put my hope in you, Lord. You will answer, Lord my God. For I said, don't let them rejoice over me, for those who are arrogant toward me when I stumble. For I am about to fall, and my pain is constantly with me. So I confess my guilt. I am anxious because of my sin. But my enemies are vigorous and powerful. Many hate me for no reason. Those who repay evil for good attack me for pursuing good. Lord, do not abandon me, my God. Do not be far from me. Hurry to help me, Lord, my Savior. Okay. What do you think about that? What is your first thought in regard to that psalm?
Sound almost like Job.
Yeah, exactly. Um, it does sound a lot like Job. Let me change this so you can see it a little better.
You're desperate, turn to God.
There we go. Now I think you can see it a little better.
Yeah,
Um,
that's better. I think we've all felt that.
the idea of suffering is a very difficult concept. If you have a God who is a profound being, and what do I mean by a profound being?
All knowing, all endless.
Yeah, all of the above, right? I mean, a profound being is beyond the normal. Um, how many of you can think of any profound humans?
Ones that think they are.
I am profound in my own mind. There you go. Um, uh, you can think of a lot of different people that we would have classified as profound, but there's always someone out there that can find something wrong with that person, right? Um, John F. Kennedy, good person, bad person.
Well, there are people that are always gonna try to bring good people down with whatever,
I mean, was Kennedy a strong leader? Did he provide something or begin the process of the civil rights movement in the US? For a lot of people, he was a beacon of hope, but for a lot of people, he wasn't. I mean, if you look at a lot of the church community at the time, it was a known secret that Kennedy had a lot of affairs, that he had a lot of poor tendencies, mafia ties and things of that nature.
He had some weakness.
Uh, yeah. I mean, from a perspective, we can look at him and see that, perhaps he wasn't the most moral human being, but does having problems mean you can't help society?
No, you can help society and still be crazy. It's okay. We'll take it. Just look at Trump. I'm not sure he's helping society.
Kathy's quote of the day. Well, you can help and still be crazy. So just you got to pick your level of crazy. So I mean, you look at Johnson. Was Johnson good for the United States? I mean, all of you lived through this stuff, so this isn't new concepts to you. So
As a person,
he implemented a large portion of the things that Kennedy set in motion. Absolutely. He did more indirectly for civil rights than Kennedy did by just trying to start it. I mean,
wasn't it just this last week, they said it was the anniversary of the signing of Medicare, and he signed it here at the Truman Library. Oh, yeah, because Truman originally started to get it through,
right.
and Harry and Bess Truman were the first two people to get their Medicare card.
There you go. And they immediately had to wait 3 weeks before they could see a doctor. So that's a whole different issue. Sorry, had to go there.
Yeah, you have to wait longer than 3 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Well, time was easier back then,
There's example after example of why. I don't know what was the Germanic tribes that kept invading Rome and Rome kept pushing them back? Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
the Gauls.
Yeah.
That was there was actually several groups, but that was those. Yeah, unfortunately the Franks, the Gauls, I think, but my early Roman Empire is pretty poor. So sorry.
Oh, that's okay. But I meant there's all examples that David was used to straighten this bunch of people out and that much people out with the sword.
Well, yeah, and then
if I've never been on a battlefield, I don't nothing about it, don't want to, but I meant that I didn't have to go. But the one thing that did, I think it's got to bother you is when they tell you to kill the children.
No, I mean, even indirectly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we've had any U.S. commanders that have said specifically kill the children. It's possible, but as far as I mean, if you drop a bomb, bombs aren't discriminatory. I mean, they pretty much do what they do when they do. So I think about Japan. And I'm not even talking about the nuclear devices. I'm talking about the firestorms that, they set in Tokyo. Yeah, just the incendiary stuff. And the same thing in Germany. I mean, and there's lots of different places where we see force being used against people. Can humanity get along? Well, hey, we do it. I mean, how many of you, as we have talked through this, lived through the Kennedy administration and the Johnson administration and Nixon and Ford and Reagan and you guys don't need a history lesson. You voted for all of these people or voted against all of these people, one of the two.
Yeah, I'm only current Nixon.
Yeah, there you go. When you look at the world, if God is a righteous God, how can he let this stuff happen? What is the title at the top of the screen here?
Prayer of a suffering sinner.
remembrance.
Yeah, remember a Davidic psalm for remembrance, but above that, what it's saying,
Prayer of suffering.
prayer of a suffering sinner. Suffering is what? What is your definition of suffering?
Not getting what you want. No hot water.
That's that, you said that, I think you said that jokingly, but realistically, it's a very solid answer. I think that's a really good answer. Not getting what I want when I want. That a lot of people consider that suffering. How many of you in this room would have thought having to go out to the outhouse was suffering?
It's just something you
Yeah.
had to do. Something that I had to do it. I was gonna say you had to do it.
Exactly. What's the alternative? Exactly. If you didn't have indoor plumbing and you knew that you had to visit the outhouse, what did you say? Excuse me. Excuse me, I must go to the outhouse, or whatever, however the polite mechanism was to say it at the time.
We just got up and went.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Was in a Baptist church down off of 13. And there were outhouses, and one of the children, I think it was one,
Chance.
she got out there, she said, I'm not going in there, I'm not.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
I had to drive back to town this week. I think Sonic was the only thing open that morning.
Yeah. Well, and then, I mean, the same as if you just, go to a concert and they've got porta potties out there. How many people refuse to go into a porta potty? You'd have killed for a porta potty in 1945. I mean, that would have been a great thing. Um, I know even the boys now, they are out in the workforce now and they have portable toilets on the work site and stuff. And the first time they really ran across that, and I heard them discussing it. They were like, "Yeah, that wasn't the most pleasurable thing." So, I'll be at work and I'll see the garage door go up, and it tells me on the phone if someone opens our garage door and stuff. And I look at it and I look at the cameras to see who's going into my house, and the boys are there. It's nearly the work day. And I'm like, "What are you guys doing at the house?" "Well, we were close. We had to go to the bathroom." And I'm like, "Well, couldn't you just go, couldn't you just go the Quick Trip or something like that?" "No, we don't go to the Quick Trip. We just go to the house because we're poop shy, or shy poopers, or whatever you call it." Anyway, what is the purpose of this story other than to embarrass my children? No, that's about it. I think that's about suffering. Yeah, suffering is different for every person. Um, But what did we talk about in this particular instance? Prayer of a suffering sinner. What's the difference between just suffering, but yet being a suffering sinner?
You've done something that brought on your suffering.
Okay. Well, yeah, in a way. No, I follow what you're saying. Once you recognize that you have sinned, you are aware inherently that there's a problem. But you look at Job. Did Job do anything to create his suffering? Did Job take it well? Remember, he had boils and he had, but it said throughout the whole thing, he never cursed God. Even when his wife said, "Why don't you just give up and die?"
I love there, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Maybe she didn't want to see him suffer.
I stop and think about my wife and Sherry Shadell. They both of them are very, very much the old school moms. Just, just walk it off. Then you come to find out the kid had a broken leg or a broken arm. And they're just like, "I just walk it off." But then I gotta say, to their benefit, Kay had a broken leg. She broke her leg at the swimming pool, And before they went to the hospital, they stopped at Sonic to get the kids drinks. Um, which, so I got to give them that. They are tough birds. But I was standing at the hospital. I'd run there from work to get to the hospital because I thought they were already in the whole thing. I'm at the hospital. I'm like, no, we don't have anyone admitted by that name. And then I look up and they're just now coming in the door because they stopped at Sonic on their way in. Um, so there's suffering and then there's suffering. There's, different levels of suffering. But when you look at Job, he took his suffering in stride. Um, but his spouse was more than willing to say, just curse God and die. So where do you go when you have a God that allows you to suffer? I mean, think about righteousness. What is righteousness? And we've talked about this ad nauseum about the righteousness of God. The righteousness of God is a living entity. And again, that's a difficult concept to think of something, a word, as having life. Does that make sense? Wisdom. Wisdom is a word that has life. It has meaning. It has depth. It has focus. Righteousness, same thing. Where and how do you reconcile the fact that the God who loves us enough to give up his life for us for sin can still allow us to suffer?
I think that's something we all struggle with, you know. Just- You think, how does God allow this? When you see people in Gaza right now starving, begging for food, and you think masses of people that are hurting.
Well, and Gaza's the most recent, but look at the no. Yeah. But I mean, look at the Chinese Revolution. I mean, back the first round of the Chinese Revolution, 45 million people died from lack of food because they pulled all the farmers out of the field to bring them into urban centers. You just make a stupid move like that, and what happens?
People got no food, but you know.
Then they kill all the girl babies.
Yeah.
Chinese kill all the girls.
Yeah.
But they forgot that, they weren't lying there or whatever it's called.
So, I mean, the point being, do we make mistakes? Does humanity make mistakes?
Sure.
Do we do things that affect people not even knowing that we're going to do it? How many of you have ever affected your family?
Sure.
You made one mistake and then your whole family had to pay the price for it. I can't even make a joke about that. There's just, as parents, I know we made mistakes that affected the entire family. I know there was a job I had at one point and I just was done with it. I could no longer survive in that work environment, so I just quit.
Did you have permission from Gay?
And I didn't have permission from anybody,
Oh,
including God, because I'm pretty sure he wasn't happy with me at that point. But I had reached my end point, and I found another job within 2 weeks. I was very fortunate that I'm in a field where you can do that.
yeah.
But I went back to a job that wasn't as good. And my family had to suffer through that for 2 years before I found another job that was of the same quality of the job that I had before. And how does that affect your life? Knowing that you made a mistake that has affected everyone.
It hurts you.
Yeah. How many of you have ever taught your kids something and you learned later on maybe you were wrong? Uh, how many of you have ever corrected your child and then learned later on, maybe I was a little too strong on that? Maybe I, should have had a little more compassion. Is that suffering, though? What's the difference between being uncomfortable and suffering?
I think of something like John McCain being in a prisoner of war for all
Okay.
those years and torture that he went through. That was suffering.
Was it, I can't remember I'm going to tell you the name, but I might be wrong. Robbie Reisner, I think it was. He was a Vietnam vet. No, Cooper. Cooper. Reisner was one of those, but who was, he was the Air Force doctor and he came up with the term for aerobics. His last name was Cooper, Dr. Cooper. And I, for whatever reason, had been involved in ministry, and he was involved in the Civil Air Patrol because he was an Air Force doctor, basically. And anyway, all of this to say that I went to several churches that he was at as a guest to listen, and he gave his entire history of having been a prisoner of war. Fairly harrowing stuff. I mean, talk about the difference between being just uncomfortable and suffering. So, but realistically, yeah, is that suffering? That's the suffering of humanity, right? How many of us have ever suffered just because that's life? Anyone here ever just said, it's life. You got to deal with it. Anybody here ever been injured? Been sick?
Had a baby.
There you go.
Yeah.
Broke your leg, had a baby.
I had a dear friend that I talked with. And we had some time to just visit in the day or something. She had a son who was mentally ill. And we talked about there some other life problems and she'd go, oh, life. That way,
Yeah.
like this is like, oh, life. And I told her daughter that at her funeral. I said, at her celebration, I said, oh, that's what I remember. She said, we heard that too. I always say, oh, life.
Yeah. And, the concept of there is life, things just happen. Why would God let just life happen, though?
Like sometimes he's teaching us a lesson so that we will turn back to him possibly and know that that's where our prayers will be answered, is he'll help us through that time.
How many of you believe that you live in a perfected world?
Perfected of
Well, but I mean, think about it. I mean, compared to how many of you have given the opportunity, if someone said, hey, I'm going to let you get in a time machine and go back to 1820.
no thanks.
How many of you would do it?
I don't think they had indoor plumbing.
But do you think the people in 1820 hated their world?
No.
If they didn't know any different, they knew.
What if I sent you back to 1920? For some of you, you'd be here already. If I sent you back to 1920, not quite, not in this room. That's across the hall. Sorry, that's across the hall. When's your mom's birthday, Bob?
Pardon?
34. Okay, all right, wrong Bob. 25, wasn't it? Wait, she just turned 100 or 99? 95. Oh, okay. Well, then I'm going to shut up then because I'm going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So let's say 1930. How's that? Is that if you had the option to get in a time machine now and go back to 1930, would you?
That was the Great Depression, no.
But yet,
My dad told us that, he said him and the black family at the street, my grandmother and her worked together to scrape up meals, so we didn't know there was a depression because we didn't have any
yeah,
money to
well,
begin with.
and that's an Alabama song. You guys remember the band Alabama?
Yeah,
You know, they sang the song. It's like the depression came and gone, and we didn't know because we didn't have nothing to start with, or something to that effect. And they were like, you know, the rich for the rich man. The depression came for us. It never, you know, whatever. Anyway,
We didn't,
yeah, I can't remember it now. It would be a great, you know, story. I could tell you that, but I forgot how it goes. So I'll just leave it as go listen to Alabama. They got a great song that talks about that. We were so poor, no one could tell there was a Great Depression, is basically what it was. Um, so, but would they live in would you live in 1930 again? Could you live in 1930 again?
Oh, I
We
think
could.
34,
Yeah.
and I remember. Every time we sat down for a meal, sometimes it'll bring back a memory of what we had. And I've had a cornmeal, you make a cornbread on
Yep.
it, and they cook that up and call it mush.
Yep.
And put sugar and
That was good.
cream them.
Yeah. No, I mean you watch how many remember the Little Rascals? You
Yeah.
know, they had mush all the time in that, you know. Stymie and Buckwheat would be eating the mush, and there's a whole episode on just mush, you know.
yeah,
But, yeah.
the guy, the grandfather of that dormitory that's taking care of
Yeah.
there, I guess they're homeless kids, is right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he said, Stymie looked at this, it's nothing but mush, and then they all started throwing
Yeah.
their plates at the mayor.
Yeah, exactly.
The mush.
But if you think about it, just go 50 years before that. If you had mush, it more than likely had corn weevils in it. So when you'd eat your morning breakfast,
extra protein.
it had corn weevils in it, you know? I mean, was that a bad thing? Well, if the mush,
If you thought about it,
if
it was a bad thing.
but if the cornmeal is all you had, I mean, what did you do?
You eat it.
Yeah, I mean, it was, so
No,
again, some people's suffering is some people's breakfast, I guess is what I'm saying. Um, and it's all situational. We call it situational ethics. I mean, effectively, one of the things is I can only live the world from the perspective of my perception. The world is only what I perceive it to be. If you perceive the world to be an evil place, are you going to find evil?
Sure.
Is it easy to find evil?
Yes.
But is it also easy to harden your heart against evil? Will you do things that other people would call evil, but yet in your world it's okay? Is it okay for some people to steal? The person that's stealing, do you think they necessarily have a problem with it?
when we lived in Colorado years ago, the cornfields out there compared to Polk County or Missouri were unreal, you know. There may be, you know, a couple of sections of land, ruined. And, you know, I used to see, most of the dad worked with people and they just give him, like, fresh corn and mom could cook it and all that, but, there was some people that, they just, I don't know, they act like they didn't want to work. And
Well, and there are people today that, yeah, I mean, that's a big thing in the US and China, and most modern countries, is the young people have just said, why? Why do I have to get up and go work at a job that does nothing but destroy me and make me feel bad about myself? How many of you thought that when you were young?
Well,
I don't remember.
Yeah. How many of you just looked at the world and just said, why? Why should I get up and go to work? But yet, it's a large problem in today's society. People won't get up and go to work because they're like, well, why am I going to go work that job where people are going to, yell at me and scream at me and I'm only going to get paid, $12 an hour to do it. And then I kind of would like to say, well, it was 3.35 an hour when I was a kid. So, it's like, okay.
Mine was 25 cents.
Yeah, 25 cents. There you go. Um, so yeah. So I mean, suffering again is relative, but yeah, I mean, there are people that, can't find anything worth getting up for in the morning. And is that
We've got a neighbor across the street, and this kind of goes along with what you're saying. They can be duped by anything. And in a nutshell, he's got over $500,000 worth of show trucks sitting in his garage. And he's so fat from working. I'm fat too, so I can say that. But he's just sitting in that chair, watching the TV, worrying himself to death. And I remember that our neighbor next door, when me and Ron had been married for just a few years, she worked at Intercontinental Engineering, and her name was Kate. And she was the same way. She called me on the phone one day. That's when I got caller ID. Because I had to see who was calling me because I was getting tired of getting under a car working on it, and then somebody goes ding ding ding.
yeah,
Because
yeah. It's a problem.
basically around our house, if you had an emergency, you use the phone. If you didn't, leave it alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, she said, well, dang that Dave Ducey. He said it's gonna rain today. Now, what do you say to that? You go, okay, Kate, are you getting enough oxygen to your brain, or
Yeah.
what's the problem? I'm not.
Yeah.
But there's so many people, and there's lots and lots of. I'm not saying that everybody's perfect, but I have found more joy in all the years that we mowed grass together, me and my dad, from people like Mrs. Dima Dodge, and we were kind of at odds when we first went together. I started mowing her yard, but over time she saw what I did, and then every Friday all I had to do is Friday as I get done mowing her yard, I come in. She said, "You know where it's at." I get her coat and fix it, mine, and bring it to her.
There you go.
She'd watch the Cubbies on the big screen and listen to the Royals on the radio.
There you go.
But like I said, that's always been nice because, but in our neighbor's case, he didn't want to hear it. He's telling me what gargoyles and some other Frankensteinian stuff, and I told him, I said, "You watch that junk. That was designed to do nothing but scare little kids
There you go.
to death."
Well, I guess, yeah, and people say that about sci-fi for me. Why do you watch that stuff? That's not real. You realize we've only been to space a few times, right? Yeah.
Well, but Dr. Jeffers.
I thought you were going to say
Robert
Doctor
Jeffers.
Who, and I was like, that's a whole different show. That's something else.
Jeffers. His name's Jeffers. It's not Jeffries, but people think it's Jeffers. But anyways, I listen to him. I listen to Chuck Swindoll in the morning and all that. And there's a whole lot of wisdom that we just kind of skip over, even in our youth, that would have kept us out of hot water.
Yeah. And it does come down to what is your focus? I mean, what are you really focused on living? And think about the person writing this, David. David lived in a time where he took care of sheep. And not only did he take care of the sheep, but he's the one who learned how to kill lions with a slingshot. How many of you know hunters that wouldn't go after a lion with a four-bore, giant howitzer cannon? Uh, you know, um, think about just being a kid standing in a field and, a lion being out there or whatever form of big cat. Think about being out there for wild, dogs and hyenas and things of that nature. And this is a child being responsible for taking care of this flock, right? If that person ends up being somewhat of a warrior, can you see how they got there?
Well, during the war, when we lived in Colorado, uh, my uncle and my aunt, they had, and his parents had cattle down the dry land. And every year they'd have to go down and get them, bring them in for the winter. And I went on some of those when we lived there. And well, about 3 years, I guess it was. And I tell you, it makes you appreciate the city.
Yeah. And if you had to walk the pasture, that's even worse. At least some people had, at least some farms you had horses at least, or,
Yeah.
now they use four-wheelers, to go out and get the herd in. But yeah, it definitely has gotten easier. But yeah, I mean, getting up in the cold in the morning and trying to get them all to, go where they got to go. I remember going out just to feed the pigs in the morning when it was freezing, and it's like, I'm good. They can take care of themselves, but they can't. So off you go. Um, if we look at life, can we blame God for our poor choices?
Some people like to, but I think not. I think, you're the one that made the poor choice.
So let's look at these verses. Lord, do not punish me in your anger or discipline me in your wrath, for your arrows have sunk into me, and your hand has pressed down on me. What is causing this fear in him? I mean, this is not a literal word for word. I mean, at what point did God actually shoot him with an arrow? What is the arrow that has struck him? The Holy Spirit has convicted him of his sin. When you look at Saul, King Saul, when it came time to get an answer from God, God said, "Not yet." And Saul said, "That's not an answer." It was an answer. The answer is wait. And Saul said, "Then I'll find it myself." And off he went to find the answer himself. And the answer he was seeking was, is God going to favor me in this battle? Well, first of all, it's a ludicrous question to even ask. If God is sending you into a battle, you will win it because you don't defeat God. But if you think that there's a possibility here, maybe you shouldn't do it. Is it you or is it God? David was in a place where he was working daily to decide, is this God's will or is it my will? And we see here that David has reached a place where he has done what he thought was best, within his own time frame. And what did it do to God's opinion of David? Does God ever correct us when we're wrong? Does God allow us to be wrong? And I've told you guys this story a million times, and I'll tell it again.
I haven't heard
Yeah,
of it.
oh, there you go. Okay, that works. Max was learning to drive. We're out driving around, and his brother and my now daughter-in-law were in the back seat, and we were bringing them on their first date. They were like 15, both of them, 14 and 15. And so we bring them on the date, and Max is driving, and he's just got me upset. And I'm over it. I'm over with them learning how to drive. So I'm just criticizing him the whole time. I'm just not a fun person to be with. He's upset. I'm upset. They're upset. It was just not a great adventure. And we drop them off and we come back to pick them up, and I'm still in a foul mood. And I finally decide, after reflecting on my behavior, that I was the problem and that I had ruined this occasion for everyone. And I was willing to go to my sons and my future daughter-in-law and tell them that I was sorry, that it was my fault, that it was my efforts that had made this a poor choice, a poor decision. And I really believe that by asking that forgiveness, that my daughter-in-law decided maybe my son wasn't so bad. That maybe if his dad could stop for a minute and say, "I'm sorry," maybe the son can do the same thing. And, she came to church here. She was baptized here. They both were baptized here. They've known each other and been with each other since they were 14, just had their first child 2 weeks ago. And I feel that it's only because I was willing, well, not only, but
You had
one of
to
the
do
things,
that, did you?
one of the things in that was that I was willing to be humble and continually be humble in front of them. Can we do that for everyone we meet? Can we admit that we are wrong? I'm not telling you it's easy. I mean, look at what David is saying here. Lord, do not punish me in your anger, or discipline me in your wrath, for your arrows have sunk into me, and your hand has pressed down on me. This is God telling him, you are wrong. Your opinion is a poor opinion. Change yourself. There is no health in my body because of your indignation. There is no strength in my bones because of my sin. He has finally come to the realization that he has offended the righteousness of God. Are you willing, when confronted with the righteousness of God, to stop and say, this is wrong. I am wrong. And it really hurts me to say it because my ego is bruised. I don't want to admit it to anybody. I don't want to tell people that I'm a terrible human being. But if I don't, God is going to say to me, you are the one that's being terrible. And how do we know that? He's admitting it right here. He's saying there's no strength in my bones because I realize that I'm being an ogre here. My sins have flooded over my head. They are a burden too heavy for me to bear. My wounds, spiritual wounds, are foul and festering because of my foolishness. My heart is broken before God. I am bent over and brought low. All day long I go around in mourning, for my loins are full of burning pain, and there is no health in my body. I am faint and severely crushed. I groan because of the anguish of my heart. Have you ever looked at your life and even over the most inconvenient of sins been convicted? How many of you have made an offhand comment to your spouse and realized that you hurt them? How many of you realize that you have hurt someone you love, and as you're sitting there just driving your car, you realize suddenly, I was wrong. I said something to her or to him or to my children or to my boss or to the people that I work with that was just not right. The word right is a part of the word righteousness. I did not do what was right. How many of you are willing to take that pain of being wrong before God and going out and asking forgiveness?
Because we can accept salvation until we do. And that's part of, I mean, when I accepted the Lord, I was only 9 years old. I didn't feel a little big burden of sin, but yet in those days, they talked about a lot about being lost.
Mhm.
And as a child, I don't want to be lost. I want to belong to God.
Right.
And, but through your years, you're constantly asking for forgiveness. I
Yeah.
do every day.
Right. And that's because we are in a fallen state. I mean, and let's make sure that we understand and be clear about this. Do you sin because you enjoy it? Or do you sin because you feel that you're compelled sometimes? And the answer is you are compelled. Who is compelling you? And don't say the devil.
Holy Spirit.
Well, I'm talking about compelling you to do what is wrong.
Yeah.
Well, the devil helps, but how many of you are willing to admit, I don't need the devil to sin? Think about that. Do you need the devil to sin? Does the devil have to tell you when you smoke that cigarette? I'm not saying cigarettes are a sin. I'm saying that they're a compulsion. But how many of us use that compulsion because it makes us feel good? There are some people that lying brings them peace. There are people who steal and it brings them joy. They don't need help doing those things. There are people who cheat in their marriage. They don't care. They just got caught.
You don't think that they're being tempted by the devil?
Oh, yeah. I think the devil has something to do with that. But I'm also saying that maybe the original tempting was from the devil, but picking it up and perfecting it, we're capable of doing that on our own. How many of you here have ever perfected your sin? Well, you
That's
keep
your
go
pet sin.
yeah, you keep going back to God and asking him to forgive you for it. So if you are asking God to forgive you of the same things over and over, who keeps picking it up? You do. It must be somewhat enjoyable or you wouldn't do it. And the problem, or not the problem, the reconciliation is just that. You have to admit to yourself that you enjoy sometimes you enjoy being a sinner. That's a hard thing to come to your realization, right? That I actually sin and do the same things over and over again because, well, at some level, I am compelled. Who is doing the compelling? Yes, the devil can do that. But if we're talking about a lifetime of 40 years, at some point you got to stop blaming the devil, right? Flip Wilson, the devil made me do it, you know? Um, at some point you have to stop and say, the devil may have started this temptation, but I'm doing just fine on my own. And when you realize that, when you realize that you are a sinner, I mean, remember this, Paul, Peter, and the apostles and the disciples and all those people that wrote the Bible said, I see what is right and do not do it. And if they can't make it through life, how am I going to make it through life? And it comes down to all we have to do is say, God, I realize that perhaps my fallen nature can be fun. But the question is, are you willing to listen to what is right and say, what I want does not count? And what David is saying here is, I've gotten myself to the point where I am willing to say, yes, it's fun. Yes, I enjoy being right, but I can't always be right. Sometimes I have to stop and look and say, am I being a sinner or can I be a saint? And when the Holy Spirit says to you, you are wrong, you can either harden your heart or you can accept it. And when you accept the guilt, when the guilt is yours, when you own it, and you're not just being crushed by it, for example, verse 8, I am faint and severely crushed. I groan because of the anguish of my heart. Lord, my every desire is known to you. My sighing is not hidden from you. And he continues to go through, I have come to the open realization that I am a sinner, that I have done things wrong against you. I apologize to you for me being wrong. Why did I do it? When you ask a 2-year-old, why did you steal the cookie from the cookie jar? What do they say?
The devil made me do it.
I wanted a cookie. Okay, well, that's bottom line. You just got to admit that sometimes you just want a cookie. So, all right, we're done for today. Thank you for being here, and we'll pick it up next week.